30 mobsters watched my little sister kiss my husband before I even opened the group chat on Easter morning. Sarah Merriweather's phone buzzed 14 times before she opened her eyes. Easter Sunday, 7:43 m. The Silvestri estate was already alive. She could hear the kitchen staff downstairs prepping the lamb, the clatter of serving trays, the low hum of Vincenzo's security detail rotating shifts along the perimeter. She'd slept in because the baby had kept her up until 3, pressing against her ribs with the restless energy of someone who'd inherited their father's refusal to stay still. 5 months. 5 months of carrying this child inside a house that operated more like a fortress than a home, surrounded by men who called her Senora, but answered only to her husband. She reached for her phone on the nightstand. 14 notifications, all from the same thread, the Silvestri family group chat. A thread she usually muted because it was mostly logistics, who was handling what shipment, which restaurant needed staffing, whose cousin needed bailing out of county lockup on a Saturday night. She never read it. Nobody expected her to. But 14 messages before 8 in the morning on Easter meant something had detonated. She opened the chat. The first thing she saw was a video, 9 seconds long, time-stamped 11:47 p.m. Last night, while she'd been upstairs rubbing cocoa butter on her belly and talking to the baby about nothing. The footage was from the East Garden camera, the one mounted above the iron gate where the property met the old vineyard road. High angle, night vision, grainy green light. 2 figures. One she recognized by his shoulders before his face. Vincenzo Silvestri, her husband, 6'2". Suit jacket off, sleeves rolled. The other figure was smaller, leaning into him, hands on his chest, face tilted upward. Kissing him. Sarah's thumb hovered over the screen. The video looped. She watched it play again. The lean, the hands, the tilt. And on the second pass, her brain finally processed what her eyes had been refusing to register. The smaller figure was wearing the lavender cardigan Sarah had lent her yesterday afternoon. Blythe, her little sister, 22 years old. Arrived 3 days ago for Easter weekend with a suitcase, a smile, and a ceramic Easter egg she'd painted for the nursery. Sarah scrolled down. The messages beneath the video were a avalanche. Nino Catanzaro, head of security, footage flagged from East Gate. Timestamp 23:47. Sending to 5 now. He'd sent it to the family chat, not Vincenzo's private number. The family chat. 63 members, 30 of whom were soldiers, capos, and underbosses in the Silvestri operation. Men who feared Vincenzo. Men who respected Sarah. Men who were now, at 7:43 on Easter morning, watching her little sister's mouth on her husband's lips in night vision green. The replies were already stacking. Rocco Palmieri. This real? Dario Costabile. East Gate Cam doesn't lie. Fiorella Silvestri. Vincenzo's aunt. Someone call Sarah. Now, Gennaro Zito? Boss is gonna lose his mind when he sees this thread. Sarah set the phone face down on the bed. The baby kicked hard, right below her sternum, like a knock on a door she wasn't ready to open. Downstairs, she could hear Blythe's laugh drifting up from the kitchen. Bright, easy, the laugh of a woman who didn't know 63 people had just watched her ruin a family. Or the laugh of a woman who knew exactly what she'd done. The people who eat at your table don't always pray for your blessing. Hey, before we dive in, welcome, wherever you're watching from right now. Whatever time it is in your corner of the world, I'm glad you're here. How are you doing tonight? And real talk. If you haven't subscribed yet, come join this family. We don't just tell stories here. We feel them. Sarah didn't go downstairs. Not yet. She sat on the edge of the bed, bare feet on the cold tile, and pressed both hands against her stomach like she was holding the baby in place. Like if she let go, everything inside her would spill out and she'd never collect it again. Think. She needed to think. Vincenzo's side of the bed was empty, sheets pulled tight with military corners. His habit. Even when he slept 3 hours, his watch was gone from the nightstand. His shoes were gone from the closet door. He'd been up for hours, which meant he'd either already seen the group chat or he was the reason the footage existed in the first place. She opened the video one more time. 9 seconds. She watched Blythe's hands flatten against Vincenzo's chest. She watched him stand there, not pulling away, not leaning in, still, like a man who'd been ambushed and hadn't decided what to do about it, or like a man who was used to it. Sarah closed the app and called the one person in this house whose loyalty predated the Silvestri name. Olympia Ferraro picked up on the second ring. "I already know," she said. No greeting. Olympia was Vincenzo's operations manager. 51, Sicilian-born, built like a courthouse pillar. She'd been with the family since before Vincenzo took over from his father, and she answered to structure, not sentiment. The chat's been live since Nino posted at 6. I've locked the thread and revoked media sharing, but at least 30 people downloaded the clip before I could kill it. Where's Vincenzo? Downstairs. East Wing study. He's been in there since 5 with the door closed. Nino's outside the door trying to explain how a surveillance clip meant for Vincenzo's private line ended up in a chat with 63 members. And Blythe, kitchen. Helping Marcella with the pastiera like nothing happened. She's either innocent or insane. I haven't decided which. Sarah stared at the closet across the room. Her Easter dress hung on the door. Cream linen, empire waist, chosen specifically to accommodate 5 months of belly. She'd planned to wear it to the family brunch. She'd planned to sit at the long table in the garden, surrounded by 40 Silvestris, and feel, for one morning, like she belonged to something warm. That dress looked like a costume now. Olympia, I need you to pull every camera feed from the East Gate between 10 p.m. and midnight. Not just the clip Nino sent, everything, every angle. A pause. You think there's more. I think 9 seconds isn't a full story. And I think someone wanted it to look like one. Sarah had married Vincenzo Silvestri 14 months ago, in a ceremony that lasted 11 minutes and a reception that lasted 7 hours. She'd known what he was. Everyone in the 5 boroughs who paid attention knew what the Silvestri family was. Legitimate businesses stacked on top of operations that never appeared on tax returns, a private army disguised as a logistics company, and a name that made prosecutors change subjects at cocktail parties. She married him anyway, not because she was naive, because he'd sat across from her at a fundraiser for the Children's Hospital, where she worked as an occupational therapist, and said, "Without any performance, you're the first person tonight who hasn't asked me for anything." And she'd said, "That's because I don't know who you are." And he'd laughed, really laughed, unguarded. And for 3 seconds, the most feared man in Staten Island looked like someone who'd been waiting a very long time to be ordinary. That was the man she married. The one who existed in the pauses between power. But power didn't pause for long in this family. Vincenzo's world ran on surveillance, loyalty tests, and the assumption that everyone was performing, including, apparently, her sister. Blythe had arrived Thursday evening with a duffel bag and a ceramic Easter egg she'd painted herself, delicate, hand-brushed with tiny blue flowers that matched the nursery Sarah was decorating. "For the baby," Blythe had said, pressing it into Sarah's hands. Grandma's tradition. Remember? Sarah remembered. Their grandmother used to paint one ceramic egg every Easter, for every grandchild. When she died, Blythe inherited her brushes. The egg sitting on Sarah's dresser right now was the first one Blythe had ever painted for someone else's child. It had meant everything Thursday night. Now Sarah looked at it and couldn't tell if it was a gift or a prop. Her phone buzzed. A text from a number she didn't recognize. Don't go downstairs yet. The video isn't what it looks like. Meet me in the wine cellar. NC Nino Catanzaro, the man who'd accidentally broadcast her humiliation to 30 soldiers. Now he wanted a private meeting in the room full of screens that had captured the footage in the first place. The wine cellar had been converted 3 years before Sarah ever set foot in the Silvestri estate. Vincenzo had gutted it during a renovation, ripped out the oak racks, poured a new concrete floor, and filled the space with monitors, servers, and enough hard drive storage to archive every second of footage from 47 cameras across the property. The family still called it the wine cellar. Everyone knew it was a command center. Sarah descended the stone steps slowly, one hand on the railing, one hand on her belly. The air was cooler down here. Climate controlled for the equipment, not for comfort. Blue light from the monitors washed across the walls in shifting patterns. Nino Catanzaro stood at the center console with his back to her. He was 44, compact, shaved head, built like a man who'd spent his 20s doing things he now managed other people to do. He turned when he heard her footsteps, and his face carried something she hadn't expected. Not guilt, not fear, but urgency. Before you say anything, he started. You sent a 9-second clip of my sister kissing my husband to 63 people. That's what I'd like you to start with. He exhaled. The system flags motion events at key perimeter points. East Gate triggered at 23:47. Standard protocol. I review, I forward to the boss. I was copying the file link on my phone and pasted it into the wrong thread. Family chat instead of Vincenzo's direct. By the time I realized, Rocco had already replied. That's a very expensive mistake, Nino. It is, and I'll answer for it. But that's not why I ask you down here. He turned to the console and pulled up a timeline, a horizontal bar segmented by camera, color-coded by motion detection. I sent you 9 seconds because that's what the alert captured. But after the chat went live, I went back and pulled the full East Gate sequence. 23 minutes of continuous footage starting at 23:31. He pressed play. The screen filled with the same green night vision image. The garden gate, the vineyard road beyond, the low stone wall lined with rosemary bushes Vincenzo's mother had planted 20 years ago. For the first 40 seconds, nothing. Then movement. From the right side of the frame. Blythe. Walking alone. No coat. Just the lavender cardigan, arms crossed against the chill. She wasn't heading toward the gate. She was heading toward the bench beside it, the one Sarah used to sit on during her first trimester when nausea drove her outside for air. Blythe sat, pulled out her phone, waited. At 23:38, a second figure entered from the left. Not Vincenzo. Someone else entirely. Tall, narrow-shouldered, wearing a dark coat with the collar turned up. He approached Blythe and sat beside her. They talked for 6 minutes. No audio. The East Gate camera was visual only, but the body language was legible. He was persuading. She was resisting. At one point, she stood to leave. He caught her wrist. She sat back down. At 23:44, the man in the coat stood, looked directly at the camera, and smiled. A deliberate, knowing smile aimed straight at the lens, like someone waving at a photograph they knew would be developed later. "Who is that?" Sarah asked. Her voice was flat, controlled. the voice of a woman conserving every ounce of energy for what came next. Nino freeze-framed on the face. The resolution was grainy but workable. Angular features, a thin scar bisecting the left eyebrow, dark hair swept back. Celestino Silvestri, Nino said. Vincenzo's first cousin. Exiled from the family 2 years ago after a vote Vincenzo initiated. He's been operating out of Philadelphia since then. Small crew, limited reach, loud ambitions. Sarah knew the name. She'd never met the man. Vincenzo mentioned him exactly once, early in their marriage, with the brevity reserved for subjects that were closed. Celestino made choices. Choices have geography. That was all she got. Now, Celestino was on the estate, on camera, talking to her sister. Keep watching, Nino said. The footage continued. At 23:46, Celestino walked off frame to the left. 15 seconds later, Vincenzo appeared from the direction of the main house. No jacket, shirt untucked, moving like a man who'd been told to come outside quickly. He approached Blythe at the bench. She stood. They spoke. Brief, tense. Two people having a conversation neither wanted. Then Blythe stepped forward and kissed him. But the full footage showed what the 9-second clip didn't. It showed Vincenzo's hands. Not on Blythe's waist, not on her back, but at his sides, fists curled. It showed him pull his head away within 2 seconds. It showed him take 3 steps backward and point toward the house with the rigid command of a man giving an order, not a lover. And it showed Blythe's face as she turned away from him. She wasn't crying. She wasn't triumphant. She looked terrified. She didn't want to do it, Sarah said. No, Nino confirmed. Watch Celestino's position. He switched to a secondary camera, the vineyard perimeter, wider angle. Celestino stood 40 meters away, partially obscured by a trellis post, holding a phone at chest height. Recording. He'd staged the kiss, positioned himself to capture it from an angle that excluded his presence, and waited for the estate's own cameras to create the corroborating evidence. The 9-second clip wasn't a betrayal caught on tape. It was a betrayal manufactured for tape. Celestino wanted this footage to leak, Sarah said. He wanted the family to see it. He wanted you to see it, Nino corrected. A pregnant wife finding out her husband kissed her sister. That's not a security breach. That's a detonation. It fractures trust, divides the household, and creates exactly the kind of internal chaos Celestino needs if he's going to make a move against Vincenzo's position. Sarah pressed her hands against the console to steady herself. The baby shifted. A slow roll beneath her ribs, like a question mark forming inside her. Does Vincenzo know about Celestino being on the property? He knows. He's known since 5 this morning. That's why he's locked in the study. He's not hiding from the group chat. He's trying to figure out how his exiled cousin got past a 47-camera perimeter without triggering a single alert until the kiss. Sarah climbed the stairs from the wine cellar with 2 pieces of knowledge that rearranged everything. Her sister had been coerced, and someone inside the estate had helped Celestino get in. 4 people had the East Gate code: Vincenzo, Nino, Olympia, and the estate's groundskeeper, a quiet Sardinian named Basilio Ferrara, who'd been with the family for 19 years. One of them was a traitor, and in approximately 3 hours, all of them would be sitting at the same Easter table. She found Vincenzo in the East Wing study. The door was open now. Nino must have called ahead. He stood behind his desk, not sitting, because Vincenzo Silvestri didn't sit during crises. He processed problems on his feet, pacing the narrow strip between the desk and the window like a man measuring the dimensions of a cage. He looked at her when she entered And for the first time since she'd known him, she saw something behind his eyes that wasn't calculation or command. It was dread. The specific dread of a man who knows he's about to be judged for something he didn't do and understands that innocence doesn't always matter. Context does. And the context was catastrophic. "I didn't touch her, Sarah." "I know. I saw the full footage." His pacing stopped. "Nino showed you." "I asked him to." 23 minutes, both camera angles, including your cousin smiling at the lens like he was posing for a yearbook photo. Vincenzo's jaw worked. Celestino. He's been circling for months. Small moves. Reaching out to soldiers who feel underpaid, floating rumors about my judgment, questioning why I married outside the families. He paused on that last word, and she heard what it cost him to say it. Outside. Sarah wasn't Italian. She wasn't connected. In the world Vincenzo operated in, she was an anomaly. Loved by him, tolerated by some, resented by others. "He used Blythe to light the match," Sarah said. But somebody held the door open. The East Gate code, Vincenzo. 4 people have it. I've already eliminated myself and Nino. The logs show my phone generated the code at 6 a.m. for the catering delivery. Nino's last gate access was Thursday. That leaves Olympia and Basilio. Olympia has been with you since your father's time. So has Basilio. The room held the weight of that sentence. Loyalty, measured in decades, was about to be tested by a single night. Easter brunch began at noon. The long table stretched across the south garden. 42 seats, white linen, ceramic pitchers of limoncello, and enough food to feed a neighborhood. The Silvestri family arrived in clusters, aunts and uncles from Bay Ridge, cousins from Bensonhurst, soldiers and their wives from every corner of Staten Island. They greeted Sarah with kisses and belly touches, and the exaggerated warmth of people who were pretending they hadn't watched a surveillance video 3 hours ago. Sarah smiled through every single one. She'd learned that skill early, the art of performing composure while your insides reorganized. Pregnancy had made her better at it, not worse. When you're carrying a life inside you, you develop an instinct for which battles to fight standing up and which to fight sitting down with a plate of food, watching. She watched, now. Blythe sat at the far end of the table, between Marcella the cook and Fiorella, Vincenzo's aunt. She hadn't looked at Sarah once since brunch began. Her hand stayed in her lap, her plate barely touched, her lavender cardigan replaced by a high-necked blouse buttoned to the throat like armor. She looked smaller than 22. She looked like a woman trying to disappear into her chair. Vincenzo sat at the head, performing the patriarch role with the automatic ease of a man who'd inherited it at 26, when his father's heart gave out during a Tuesday lunch meeting. He carved lamb. He poured wine for his uncles. He touched Sarah's shoulder when he passed behind her chair. Brief, deliberate, visible. A message to every person at the table. We are intact. But Sarah was watching 2 other people. Olympia Ferraro sat midway down the table, eating methodically, contributing nothing to conversation. Her phone sat face down beside her bread plate. Normal behavior. Olympia was not a performer, but today, her silence felt weighted, pressurized, and Basilio Ferrara, the groundskeeper, wasn't at the table at all. Sarah leaned toward Vincenzo. "Where's Basilio?" "Greenhouse," said the tulip shipment needed sorting before the afternoon. "On Easter Sunday." Vincenzo's fork paused. Their eyes met. He set the fork down. "Olympia," he said across the table. Casual, like he was about to ask about dessert. "When's the last time you accessed the East Gate?" Olympia looked up. "Wednesday." "Flower delivery for the garden arrangements." "And Basilio?" I don't track Basilio's movements. That's his domain. A beat too fast. Not a lie, necessarily, but a deflection. A woman who tracked everything in this household suddenly had a blind spot the size of a groundskeeper. Sarah filed it. Then Blythe stood, abrupt, chair scraping against stone. Every head at the table turned. "Excuse me," Blythe said. Her voice was thin, scraped clean of the brightness Sarah had grown up hearing. "I need air." She walked toward the east garden, toward the gate, toward the exact spot where, 12 hours ago, a man she'd never named had held her wrist and told her what to do. Sarah stood too. "Nick, I need your help in the kitchen," she said to no one named Nick, because no one at the table was named Nick. It was a code she and Vincenzo had established in their 3rd month of marriage, a phrase that meant, "I'm going to do something. Don't follow. Just watch the room." Vincenzo heard it. His hand tightened around his glass. But he stayed seated. Sarah followed her sister. She found Blythe at the bench by the gate. The same bench from the footage. Blythe was sitting with her arms wrapped around herself, staring at the vineyard road like she was measuring the distance to somewhere else. "Don't," Blythe said, without turning around. "Whatever you're about to say, Sarah, don't." I saw the full footage. Blythe's shoulders locked. "I saw him talk to you for 6 minutes. I saw him grab your wrist. I saw your face after you kissed Vincenzo. You looked like someone who'd just swallowed glass." Blythe turned. Her eyes were red but dry, past crying, into the territory where the body stops producing tears because it's conserving energy for survival. "He said if I didn't do it, he'd make sure you lost the baby." The garden went silent, even the birds. "He said he had people inside the estate, people who could get close to you. He said all I had to do was kiss Vincenzo on camera and walk away, and he'd leave us both alone." Blythe's voice cracked on the last word. "I didn't know about the group chat. I thought it would just be on the security feed, that Vincenzo would see it, get angry, and send me home. I didn't know 30 people would." She stopped, covered her face. Sarah sat beside her on the bench, shoulder to shoulder, the way they used to sit on their grandmother's porch in Savannah, watching fireflies, back when the most dangerous thing in their world was a screen door that didn't latch. "He threatened the baby," Sarah said. Not a question. Blythe nodded behind her hands. Sarah placed her palm on her stomach. The baby was still, listening, maybe, or sleeping through the worst morning of its mother's life. "Who is he to you, Blythe? How did Celestino find you?" "He didn't find me. Someone introduced us 3 weeks ago. Someone who said they worked for Vincenzo and wanted to help me plan a surprise for Easter." "Who?" Blythe dropped her hands. "The gardener, Basilio." Silence after betrayal isn't weakness. It's the sound of someone building their next move. Sarah didn't run back to the table. She didn't shout for Vincenzo. She sat on that bench beside her sister, hand on her belly, and let the information settle into her bones like cold water finding the lowest ground. Basilio, 19 years, the man who pruned Vincenzo's mother's rosemary bushes every Thursday. The man who left fresh-cut peonies outside Sarah's bedroom door during her first trimester because he'd heard they helped with nausea. The man who'd carried her grocery bags up the back steps last Tuesday and asked, gently, if the baby was kicking yet. That man had handed her 22-year-old sister to a predator and told her it was a surprise party. "Blythe, I need you to stay at this bench. Don't go inside. Don't talk to anyone. Can you do that?" Blythe nodded. She looked hollowed. A woman-shaped outline with all the color drained out. Sarah walked back toward the house. Not to the garden table, where 42 Sylvestris were eating lamb and pretending normalcy. She walked to the greenhouse. The structure sat at the northeast corner of the property. Glass-paned, steel-framed, humid year-round. Basilio practically lived inside it during spring. She found the door unlocked and stepped into the thick green air. He was there, kneeling beside a row of ceramic seedling pots, his hands deep in soil, a portable radio playing opera at low volume. He looked up when she entered and smiled. The same gentle, weathered smile he'd been giving her since her wedding day. "Signora, happy Easter. The tulips are... When did Celestino recruit you?" The smile didn't fall. It froze. A held expression with nothing behind it anymore, like a painting of a face instead of an actual one. "I don't know what." "Basilio." Sarah stepped closer. Her voice was quiet, not threatening. She didn't have threats in her vocabulary, and she didn't need them. She had something more dangerous in this house. She had the truth, and she had a husband who would dismantle continents for her if she asked. "My sister told me everything. You introduced her to Celestino. You told her it was a surprise for Easter. You gave her to a man who threatened to kill my baby." The radio played Puccini. A tenor held a note that should have been beautiful. Basilio's hands stilled in the soil. He didn't stand, didn't run. He looked at Sarah's belly, a long, complicated look, and something in his expression shifted from concealment to exhaustion. "He has my daughter," Basilio said. "The greenhouse, rearranged. Celestino has my Rosalba. She's 26. She lives in Philadelphia, or she did, until 2 months ago when she stopped answering my calls. He sent me a photograph of her sitting in a room I didn't recognize. He said she was comfortable. He said she'd stay comfortable as long as I cooperated." Sarah's hand found the edge of a potting table. She leaned against it. "He needed the gate code. I gave it. He needed access to the camera blind spots. There are 2, both in the East Garden, both created by vine overgrowth I was supposed to trim in January." Basilio's voice was a low rasp. "I left the vines. He needed a way to reach your sister before she arrived at the estate. I provided her phone number. I told her I was planning a gift for you. I introduced them at a coffee shop in Bayonne. And then I came home and watered the flowers and hated myself in a language I don't have words for." He looked up at her. His eyes were wet but steady. The eyes of a man who had made a terrible calculation and knew the math was indefensible. "I didn't know about the kiss until this morning. I didn't know he'd threaten your child. He told me it was about leverage, financial pressure on Vincenzo, business negotiations. I believed it because I needed to believe something smaller than the truth." Sarah stared at him. The baby pressed against her ribs, that restless shifting again, as if the child could feel its mother's pulse climbing and wanted to know why. "Where is Rosalba now?" "I don't know. He changes the location. Every 2 weeks I get a new photograph from a new number. She's alive. I believe that, but I can't prove it." Sarah pulled out her phone. Her hands were steady. Remarkably, impossibly steady for a woman standing in a greenhouse learning that the conspiracy against her family was 3 layers deeper than she'd known an hour ago. She texted Vincenzo, not the code phrase this time. Direct. "Greenhouse. Now. Bring Nino. Basilio has something to tell you. He's not the enemy. He's another hostage." She sent a second text to Olympia. "Pull every exterior camera log from January to today. Focus on the East Garden vine coverage. Someone created blind spots on purpose." Then she did something no one in the Silvestri family expected a non-Italian, non-connected, 5 months pregnant occupational therapist from Savannah to do. She took command. "Basilio, stand up. Her voice was firm, but not cruel. The voice of a woman who'd spent years helping damaged people rebuild motor function. Patient, precise, unshakable. When Vincenzo walks through that door, you're going to tell him exactly what you told me. Every detail, no editing, and then we're going to find your daughter. Basilio stood. Soil fell from his knees. He'll kill me. He won't. Because I won't let him. And because your daughter needs you alive, which means you're more useful standing than buried. Do you understand? He nodded. Once, the greenhouse door opened. Vincenzo entered first. His eyes swept the room. Sarah, Basilio, the kneeling position, the soil, and read the scene in under 2 seconds. Talk, he said to Basilio. Sarah stepped beside her husband and placed her hand on his forearm, not to restrain him, to remind him, I'm here. We handle this together. Rage is a luxury we can't afford right now. Vincenzo looked at her hand, then at her face, then at Basilio. Talk, he said again, quieter this time. On Sarah's dresser, 2 floors above them, the ceramic Easter egg Blythe had painted sat in a square of morning sunlight. Tiny blue flowers on her fragile shell. A grandmother's tradition carried forward by a girl who'd been weaponized by a man she'd never met. Introduced by a gardener who was trying to save his own child by endangering someone else's. Every person in this story was protecting someone. The tragedy was that Celestino had turned that instinct into a weapon. The legal filing arrived at 3:47 p.m. on Easter Sunday, hand-delivered by a courier on a motorcycle who pulled up to the estate gate, handed an envelope to the perimeter guard, and rode away before anyone thought to stop him. The timing was surgical. Whoever sent it wanted the Silvestri family to receive it while they were still reeling from the group chat footage, still mid-meal, still fractured. Olympia intercepted the envelope. She opened it standing in the kitchen hallway, read the first page, and walked directly to the East Wing study, where Vincenzo and Sarah were still debriefing with Basilio and Nino. She set the document on the desk without a word. Vincenzo read it. His face didn't change, but his breathing did. A single controlled inhale through his nose, held for 3 seconds, then released. The breath of a man absorbing a body blow without letting it register on his surface. What is it? Sarah asked. Petition to the Family Trust Board, filed by Celestino Silvestri and co-signed by a probate attorney in Philadelphia named Harlow Gaines. They're challenging my position as trustee on grounds of moral unfitness and compromised judgment. He set the paper down. They've attached the 9-second video as Exhibit A. The room thinned. They're arguing that my involvement with a minor family member's spouse, that's how they framed Blythe as a connected party, demonstrates a pattern of recklessness that endangers family assets and reputation. They're requesting an emergency vote of the trust board to suspend my authority and appoint an interim trustee. Let me guess, Nino said from the corner. The interim trustee they're recommending is Celestino. His name is on page 4. Sarah took the document from the desk and read it herself. The language was dense, but the architecture was clear. Celestino hadn't just staged a kiss. He'd built a legal assault around it. The video was the detonator. The filing was the bomb. And the target wasn't just Vincenzo's marriage. It was his control of every asset, every operation, every dollar that moved through the Silvestri Trust. The board is 7 people, Vincenzo said. 4 are blood family. 3 are external appointees from my father's era. Celestino needs a simple majority, 4 votes. He already has his own, if he's turned even 2 others in the last 6 months. He didn't finish the sentence. He didn't need to. Sarah set the filing down. Who are the board members? Vincenzo listed them. is Aunt Fiorella, his Uncle Carmine, who lived in Naples and attended meetings by phone, his cousin Allegra, who ran the family's restaurant group, Celestino himself, and 3 external members, a retired judge named Prospero Vitale, an accountant named Delphine Moreau, and a shipping executive named Orso Benedetti. Fiorella is loyal, Olympia said. Carmine follows Fiorella. That's 2. Allegra hasn't returned my calls in 3 weeks, Vincenzo replied. The weight of that sentence landed like a stone in still water. 3 weeks, the same window Celestino had used to approach Blythe through Basilio. He hadn't been building one attack. He'd been building a synchronized campaign. Social destruction through the video. Legal destruction through the filing. Political destruction through board members he'd been courting in silence. Sarah felt the baby kick, not gentle this time. A hard, decisive strike beneath her ribs, as if the child was punctuating the moment. Call Allegra, Sarah said. She won't answer me. She'll answer me. Vincenzo looked at her. In 14 months of marriage, he had never once asked Sarah to engage with family politics. He'd built a wall between his world and hers, not out of disrespect, but out of the same instinct that made him install 47 cameras and hire 20 armed men. Protection, control, the belief that if he managed every variable, nothing could touch her. That wall had failed spectacularly, and the woman standing on the other side of its rubble was not the soft peripheral wife the family had assumed her to be. Sarah, this isn't... If you say this isn't my fight, I need you to look at me. 5 months pregnant, standing in a room full of surveillance equipment on Easter Sunday because your cousin used my sister as a weapon, and reconsider. Silence. Nino studied the ceiling. Olympia almost smiled. Vincenzo handed her his phone. Sarah called Allegra Silvestri from the study, while Vincenzo paced behind her. The phone rang 5 times. 6. Sarah was preparing for voicemail when the line opened. If this is Vincenzo, I've said everything It's Sarah. Pause. A long one. Sarah could hear restaurant noise in the background, kitchen clatter, a hostess greeting someone, the ambient hum of a Sunday service. Sarah. Allegra's voice softened. Not warm, but not hostile. Recalibrating. I saw the video. Everyone saw the video. That's the point. It was designed to be seen. Another pause. What do you mean, designed? I mean your cousin Celestino staged it. I have 23 minutes of surveillance footage that shows him on the property, coaching my sister, recording the kiss from a secondary angle, and smiling at the camera, like a man who just won a hand of poker. I have testimony from the person he coerced into giving him gate access, and I have my sister's statement that he threatened to harm my unborn child if she didn't cooperate. The restaurant noise behind Allegra seemed to dim. Or maybe she'd walked somewhere quieter. Celestino contacted me a month ago, Allegra said slowly. He said Vincenzo was losing focus, that the marriage had made him soft. He offered me the interim trustee position if I voted for the suspension. And I told him I'd think about it. Because, honestly, Sarah, from where I stood, it didn't look wrong. Vincenzo has been different since the wedding. Distracted, less available. Some of the soldiers talk. Different isn't weak, Allegra. And a man who loves his wife enough to be distracted by her is not a man who's lost control. He's a man who finally has something worth protecting beyond the business. The line held. Sarah gripped the phone. Not with desperation, but with the focused pressure of a woman threading a needle in bad light. I need you to not vote for the suspension, Sarah said. And I need you to do it because it's right, not because I'm asking. Send me the footage, Allegra said. All 23 minutes. Tonight. The line went dead. Sarah set the phone on the desk. Her hands finally released. A fine vibration running through her fingers that she'd been suppressing for hours. Vincenzo stood by the window, backlit by late afternoon sun. She'll look at it, Sarah said. And if she doesn't believe it, she will. Because the truth has one advantage over a performance. It doesn't need rehearsal. The call came at 6:12 p.m. Vincenzo's private line, a number only 11 people in the world possessed. He answered on the second ring, standing in the study with Sarah beside him. He didn't put it on speaker. He didn't need to. Sarah watched his face and read the conversation in the shifting landscape of his expression. First, stillness, the listening posture she'd memorized over 14 months. Then, a tightening around his mouth. Not anger, something beneath anger, in the basement where a person keeps the things they can't afford to feel in real time. Then, he pulled the phone from his ear and pressed speaker. Celestino's voice filled the room. Smooth, unhurried. The cadence of a man who believed he was narrating someone else's defeat. Simple, cousin. I don't want bloodshed. I never did. The board votes Thursday. If it goes my way, you step down quietly, keep your house in Tot Hill, retain a minority share. Comfortable. Dignified. Nobody gets embarrassed beyond what's already happened. And if I fight the vote, Vincenzo's voice was level, dangerously level. Then the full clip, not 9 seconds, the version I recorded, goes to every media contact I've built over the last 2 years. The headline writes itself. Silvestri family heir caught with sister-in-law on Easter. Your wife becomes tabloid content. Your child is born into a circus. Sarah's stomach contracted. Not a kick, a clench. The baby responding to cortisol, to the chemical signature of its mother's system flooding with something primal. There's a third option, Celestino continued. And I'm offering it because, believe it or not, I have a conscience. I doubt that, Vincenzo said. Your wife leaves, voluntarily. Public separation. Amicable, quiet, no contest. She takes a settlement, goes back to Georgia or wherever she came from, and the narrative becomes, the marriage didn't work. The family moves forward, no scandal. The board vote becomes unnecessary. You keep the trust. I get a seat at the table, not the head, just a seat. Everyone survives. The room was silent except for the hum of the servers beneath them. You want me to trade my wife for a chair, Vincenzo said. I want you to be practical. She's not one of us, Vincenzo. She never was. The family tolerates her because you insist, but tolerance has an expiration date. Let her go. Marry someone the board respects. Produce an heir that doesn't come with an asterisk. Vincenzo looked at Sarah. Not for permission. Not for guidance. He looked at her the way you look at the thing you're about to fight the entire world for, with absolute, undecorated certainty. Celestino, he said, I'm going to hang up now. And then I'm going to do something you never learned how to do. What's that? Trust someone who isn't afraid of me. He ended the call. Sarah moved first. Not emotionally, strategically. The occupational therapist in her had spent a decade assessing situations, identifying functional deficits, and building rehabilitation plans for people who'd lost the ability to perform basic tasks. This was rehabilitation on a different scale. But the methodology was the same. Assess, plan, execute, adapt. We have until Thursday, she said. 4 days. We need 3 things. The board vote secured, Rosalba Ferrara located, and Celestino's recorded version of the kiss obtained and discredited before he can distribute it. Vincenzo watched her with an expression she'd never seen before. Not surprise. Recognition. The look of a man who was seeing, for the first time fully, the person he'd married. "Nino," Sarah called toward the hallway. He appeared in the doorway within seconds. "I need you to contact every board member tonight, not Vincenzo. You, neutral ground. Tell them a full evidence package is being assembled and will be delivered before Thursday. Ask them, don't demand, to withhold judgment until they've reviewed it." Nino nodded. No hesitation. Olympia. The operations manager materialized behind Nino, like she'd been waiting for her name. The camera blind spots Basilio created. "I need a complete timeline of when the vine overgrowth started, cross-referenced with Celestino's known movements since January. If he's been on this property before last night, I want proof." "Already started," Olympia said. "I pulled the satellite imaging from the landscaping service. The East Garden vines grew 12 inches in 2 months. Someone was fertilizing them deliberately. Basilio confirmed it under questioning." "Good. Add it to the evidence file." Sarah turned to Vincenzo. "I need one more thing from you." "Name it." "Your cousin said he has media contacts. That means he has a distribution plan for his version of the video. Harlow Gaines, his attorney, filed the trust petition. Attorneys keep records of client communications. If Gaines has emails or messages showing Celestino planned the video's release as leverage, that's not just evidence of staging. That's extortion." Vincenzo's eyes narrowed, not in suspicion, but in the sharpened focus of a man whose wife had just identified the kill shot. "Cordelia Osei," he said. "She's an estate fraud attorney. Handled a case against the Morano family 3 years ago. Clean, brutal, surgical. She doesn't flinch. Call her. It's Easter Sunday. Call her anyway." He called. Cordelia answered. Lawyers who handled mafia-adjacent cases didn't take holidays. They took retainers. Monday and Tuesday, blurred into a single sustained operation run from the East Wing study that now functioned as a war room. Nino contacted every board member. Fiorella confirmed her vote for Vincenzo immediately. Carmine, calling from Naples at midnight, followed his sister's lead. Allegra requested 48 hours to review the evidence, which meant she was genuinely deliberating, which meant she hadn't been bought. The 3 external members were harder. Prospero Vitale, the retired judge, was cautious by profession. Delphine Moreau, the accountant, had received a personal visit from Celestino in February, a lunch she'd never disclosed to Vincenzo. Orso Benedetti, the shipping executive, was unreachable entirely. His assistant said he was traveling, which could mean anything. Olympia's timeline revealed that Celestino had accessed the property at least twice before Easter, once in January and once in early March, using the blind spots Basilio had cultivated. Both visits coincided with dates when Vincenzo was off-site. He'd been mapping the estate's rhythms for months, and on Tuesday afternoon, Cordelia Osei delivered the weapon Sarah had predicted. Harlow Gaines, Celestino's attorney, had made a mistake. A single, recoverable, catastrophic mistake. In his haste to file the trust petition, he'd included a supporting exhibit, a communication log between himself and Celestino. That was meant to be redacted, but wasn't. Buried on page 11 of the exhibit was a text message from Celestino, dated March 28th, 6 days before Easter. Video will be captured Easter Eve. Distribution to media on Monday, if 5 doesn't fold. Board vote is the backup. The kiss wasn't evidence of an affair. It was a documented, pre-planned extortion event. And Celestino's own attorney had accidentally submitted the proof. Cordelia filed a motion with the trust board and a separate criminal referral to the district attorney's office within 4 hours. Wednesday brought Rosalba. Savio, Nino's deputy, a former military investigator who owed Vincenzo a debt older than the marriage, had been deployed to Philadelphia on Monday with 2 objectives: locate Rosalba Ferrara and document the conditions of her confinement. He found her on Wednesday morning in a rented townhouse in South Philly, guarded by 1 man. A low-level associate of Celestino's crew who folded the moment Savio showed him a photograph of the criminal referral filing. Rosalba was unharmed, frightened, thin from stress, but unharmed. Savio drove her to a safe location in New Jersey and called Basilio from the road. Sarah was in the greenhouse when Basilio received the call. She'd gone there deliberately because she wanted to be present when the old man heard his daughter's voice for the first time in 2 months. He answered the phone, listened, said his daughter's name, Rosalba, in a voice that cracked open like dry earth receiving rain. Then he sat on the greenhouse floor among the ceramic pots and seedling trays and wept with the silent, shaking gratitude of a father whose worst nightmare had just released its grip. Sarah stood at the door and let him have the moment. She didn't intrude. She didn't need credit. She'd learned long ago that the most powerful thing you could do for someone in their worst hour was simply make sure they weren't alone in it. Thursday, 10 a.m. The trust board convened in the formal dining room of the Silvestri estate, the same room where, 5 days earlier, 42 people had eaten Easter lamb while a surveillance video burned through their phones. The irony wasn't lost on Sarah. She'd requested the location deliberately. Let the board sit in the room where the damage started. Let them feel the geography of it. 7 chairs, arranged around the table. Fiorella Silvestri, 71, wearing black, sat closest to Vincenzo. A positional statement that required no words. Carmine attended by video from Naples, his face filling a laptop screen propped on a stack of leather-bound accounting ledgers. Allegra arrived last, carrying a folder Sarah recognized, the evidence package Nino had delivered Tuesday night. The 3 external members filed in with the careful neutrality of people who understood they were about to decide the future of a family worth 9 figures. Prospero Vitali, the retired judge, sat with his hands folded. Delphine Moreau, the accountant, avoided eye contact with Vincenzo. Orso Benedetti, finally reachable, finally present, took his seat with the weary expression of a man who'd been briefed on the full catastrophe during his flight home. Celestino's chair was empty. At 10:07, Cordelia Osei entered the room. She carried a single binder. Organized, tabbed, devastating. Behind her came Nino, who set up a laptop connected to the room's mounted screen. "Before we begin," Cordelia said, addressing the board with the composed authority of a woman who had dismantled larger empires in smaller rooms, "I'd like to note for the record that Mr. Celestino Silvestri was notified of this meeting's time and location by registered courier yesterday at 4 p.m. He has not responded. His attorney, Harlow Gaines, withdrew as counsel this morning, citing, and I quote, irreconcilable professional conflicts. Mr. Silvestri is not represented." Prospero Vitali leaned forward. "Do we proceed without him? The board's bylaws permit proceedings with a quorum of 5. We have 6 present and 1 remote. We proceed." Cordelia opened the binder. What followed took 43 minutes. She presented the evidence in layers, each one building on the last, each one removing a brick from the structure Celestino had spent months constructing. Layer 1, the full 23-minute surveillance footage from Easter Eve, showing Celestino on the property, coaching Blythe, recording the kiss from a secondary angle. The board watched, in silence. Allegra's hand covered her mouth by minute 4. Layer 2, Basilio Ferrara's sworn statement, detailing his coercion, Rosalba's captivity, and the systematic creation of camera blind spots over a 3-month period. Basilio himself was not present. Sarah had insisted he be with his daughter in New Jersey, not performing his trauma for a boardroom. His signed affidavit carried his words without requiring his pain. Layer 3, Olympia's satellite imaging timeline, showing the deliberate vine overgrowth in the East Garden, fertilized on a schedule that aligned precisely with Celestino's covert property visits in January and March. Layer 4, the communication log from Harlow Gaines's own filing. Page 11. The text message dated March 28th. Video will be captured Easter Eve. Distribution to media on Monday if 5 doesn't fold. Displayed on the mounted screen in font large enough to read from across the room. Delphine Moreau, the accountant who'd had an undisclosed lunch with Celestino in February, stared at the screen for a long time. Then she opened her own folder and placed a single sheet of paper on the table. "He offered me a consulting contract," she said quietly. $12,000 a month for advisory services to his Philadelphia operation. I didn't accept, but I didn't report it either, and I should have. I'm disclosing it now for the record. Prospero Vitale nodded. No judgment. The old judge understood the difference between a person who'd been tempted and a person who'd been corrupted. Cordelia closed the binder. The petition before this board was filed on fraudulent grounds, supported by manufactured evidence, as part of a coordinated campaign involving extortion, coercion, unlawful confinement, and deliberate manipulation of family governance. I recommend the petition be dismissed, Mr. Silvestri's trusteeship be affirmed, and a referral to law enforcement be authorized. The vote was unanimous, 7-0, including Celestino's own seat, which under board bylaws defaulted to abstention in absence, rendering it irrelevant. Vincenzo Silvestri remained trustee. The petition was dead, and the criminal referral, filed simultaneously with the district attorney, office in Philadelphia, and the FBI's Organized Crime Division in Newark, would ensure Celestino spent the foreseeable future answering questions in rooms far less comfortable than this one. The boardroom emptied slowly. Fiorella kissed Vincenzo on both cheeks and whispered something in Neapolitan that made his eyes close for a moment. Carmine's laptop screen went dark after a brief, gruff, "well done." Allegra stopped at the door, turned to Sarah, and said 3 words that carried the weight of a month's recalculation. "I misjudged you." Sarah nodded. "You corrected it. That's what matters." Allegra left. When the room was empty, Sarah and Vincenzo stood on opposite sides of the table. The same table where he'd carved lamb 5 days ago while the world watched his marriage burn through a phone screen. He spoke first. "You did this. We did this." "No." He walked around the table toward her. Slowly, the way he moved when he wasn't performing for anyone. No authority in his step, no armor, just a man crossing a room to reach the person he should have trusted completely from the beginning. "I spent 14 months building walls around you. Cameras, guards, protocols, codes. I thought if I controlled every variable, nothing could hurt you. And the one thing I never did, the one security measure I never installed, was treating you like a partner instead of a person I needed to protect." He stopped in front of her, close enough that her belly pressed against him, the baby between them, literally and figuratively, the center of everything they were building. "I'm sorry," he said. "Not for Easter. For every day before it, where I kept you outside the room when you should have been running it." Sarah placed her hand on his chest. Beneath her palm, his heart was hammering, the one part of Vincenzo Silvestri that never learned how to perform calm. "I didn't marry you to be kept safe," she said. "I married you because you laughed, really laughed, When I told you I didn't know who you were, and I need you to keep being that man. Not the one with 47 cameras, the one who can sit across from a stranger and be ordinary. He covered her hand with his. Can I be both? You're going to have to be. We have a baby coming, a family that just survived an earthquake, and a sister who needs to know she's still welcome in our home. Vincenzo exhaled. Blythe can stay, as long as she needs. She will. Because that's what family does. The real kind, not the kind that takes votes. The estate was quieter now, not silent. Silence in the Silvestri house would mean something had gone wrong, but the quality of the noise had changed. Less surveillance, more conversation. Vincenzo had reduced the camera count from 47 to 31, dismantling the units in the private garden, the greenhouse, and the hallway outside their bedroom. Olympia had protested. Vincenzo had overruled her. Some spaces, he said, shouldn't be watched. They should just be lived in. Blythe stayed through April. She spent her days helping Basilio in the greenhouse, a strange, tender alliance between two people who'd been weaponized by the same man and found, in each other's company, a shared understanding that didn't require explanation. She painted a second ceramic Easter egg for the nursery, this one with yellow flowers instead of blue. She placed it on the shelf beside the first one and said, "The baby should know their aunt tried." Sarah put her hand on Blythe's shoulder. "The baby will know their aunt stayed. That's better." Basilio returned to the estate. After a week in New Jersey with Rosalba, he was different. Softer, slower, as if captivity had rearranged his relationship with time. He pruned the East Garden vines back to their proper length on his first morning home and stood looking at the exposed camera for a long moment before returning to the greenhouse. Vincenzo never mentioned the betrayal. He added Rosalba to the family's private health insurance and sent her a handwritten note that said, "You are welcome here. No conditions." Celestino was arrested in Philadelphia on a Tuesday. The charges: extortion, unlawful confinement, coercion, and conspiracy to defraud were federal. Harlow Gaines cooperated with investigators within 48 hours of his withdrawal as counsel, providing communication records that stretched back 11 months. The case was expected to take a year. Celestino would not be attending family dinners during that time, or likely for many years after. On a Sunday in late April, Sarah sat on the bench by the East Garden gate, the same bench from the footage, the same bench where Blythe had told her the truth. The sun was warm. The rosemary was blooming. The baby was 6 months along now, pressing outward with increasing confidence, like a person already practicing how to take up space in the world. Vincenzo sat beside her. He carried 2 small cups of espresso, made in the kitchen by his own hand, a skill he'd been practicing since Easter because Sarah had mentioned once, offhandedly, that her mother used to say you could judge a person by whether they made their own coffee or waited for someone to bring it. He handed her a cup. She took it. "How are you feeling?" he asked. She thought about it. Really thought. "Like I'm finally sitting down," she said. "Like I'm finally allowed to just sit." He put his arm around her. Not possessively, not protectively, just presently. A man sitting beside his wife on a bench in a garden, drinking coffee, waiting for their child, and learning, slowly, imperfectly, but genuinely, that the strongest fortress isn't the one with the most cameras. It's the one where the doors are open. You don't owe forgiveness to anyone who hasn't earned your grief. This story was about trust. Not the kind demanded by power, but the kind built by presence. If you or someone you know is experiencing coercion or control in a relationship, please reach out to the National Domestic Violence Hotline at 1-800-7-997-233. You are never alone, and you are never someone else's leverage. Thank you for staying through every phase. Wherever you're watching from, your bed, your commute, your quiet corner, I hope this story reminded you of 3 things. The people who eat at your table don't always pray for your blessing. Silence after betrayal isn't weakness. It's the sound of someone building their next move. And you don't owe forgiveness to anyone who hasn't earned your grief. If this moved you, subscribe and share it with someone who needs these words tonight. I'll see you in the next one. Take care of each other.